Hello everyone and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, as you can see by the screen, we are going to be doing our predictions for the first week of Stage 5. It's going to be the New York home series. Obviously, we aren't playing in New York, unfortunately, but it's going to be the New York home series. But if you enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And also, before we get into this, I wanted to just mention, obviously, there was no reaction, podcast, or video to the Stage 4 major. I kind of talked about it a little bit on Twitter. Just kind of a lot of things going on in my life, a little bit of a rough patch recently, but things are looking up. So shout out to the few of you guys that reached out and just kind of checked in, see I was doing okay. But it's nothing major. Just every once in a while you just get a little burned out. Not really from this podcast at all. This hasn't given me any burnout because it's a once a week thing and I really enjoy doing it. But just overall life, a little bit of burnout. I kind of just need a little bit of time off social media, off Twitter and stuff like that to just kind of relax. A lot of stress and stuff going on, but it's just a nice, much needed break. And I was going to come on and make a video or a podcast about the Stage 4 major now, and I was like, it's 2 weeks removed, plus you guys have already probably consumed all of your content that you could dream of for the Stage 4 major, because I'm sure you've consumed a lot of it if you're interested. So I didn't really want to sit down and make a video and be like, hey, it's 2 weeks after the major, here's my thoughts on it, because it seemed like kind of a little outdated, so I figured I'd just jump back in with the predictions and get into a normal schedule. But if you guys really want to have my thoughts on the Stage 2 major, or, oh my god, Stage 2 major, I'm all kinds of off, on the Stage 4 major, you can just reach out to me. I mean, if enough of you want to see a video, I'd definitely be willing to make it, and give my thoughts, but I feel like it's just a little outdated. Or if you have a question about the major, you can tweet me, DM me, message me, whatever. I'd be more than willing to talk about it with you. I love to talk about it. But yeah, that's why I didn't make the video regarding that, but expect to be on the normal schedule again. So without further ado, we'll just get right into the predictions on this one. Obviously, we have a couple roster changes going down. LAG, the LA Gorillas, have brought in Mental for Chino. Kind of a weird roster move. Obviously, because of the fact that Chino recently, it's hard to say who their best player really is because they've struggled so much overall in everything, I guess. I was going to say they struggled so much in Respawn, but really in everything they've struggled. And you can make an argument that Chino was their best player, but he gets benched for Mental. I guess if the move happened earlier, I think I'd like it more because they kind of would be taking a shot to try and make a run and potentially win a spot in playoffs if they had done this like end of Stage 3 or something when they were still kind of within that like 40 points or whatever they were within before Florida kind of hit their stride and was winning 3-4 matches in the stage. And LAG still looked relatively competitive. They could have tried to make the switch and put Mental in on a sub instead of when Silly was playing sub or something, if they would have kept Chino on Assault and just gone for a home run or something like that just to try to find a way. But now at this point, I'm pretty sure they're like guaranteed eliminated unless like Florida loses every match and LAG goes like undefeated and wins the major, which, even if LAG finds a way to make a great run, I don't ever see a possible way they go undefeated and win the major. And I also don't see a way that Florida is just losing all of their matches. So it's a little bit too little too late, but if there is a bright side to it, maybe Mental shows a ton of potential and shows that he's like a superstar caliber player. I don't expect him to be an instant superstar, but maybe he shows the potential that he could be a superstar. He's an all-time great player in the Gears of War scene. I don't know much about the Gears of War scene, admittedly, but everybody says he's one of the all-time greats there, maybe even the GOAT. So, if he has that much talent in one esport, you figure he might be able to do good things in COD. So I guess the upside on that is maybe he shows he's a potential superstar and LAG can kind of build their franchise around him. Then the other team that makes a big notable roster change is LA Thieves. They bring in John with Draza and Slasher and Kenny. Kind of an interesting move. Draza's been playing a lot of AR this year, obviously when he was starting on the roster for LA Thieves, but we know he's kind of a sub player at Flex. He can do both. So he'll be playing the sub with John, and then Slasher and Kenny will be on the ARs. Kenny being that flex, if they have to play like an Apocalypse, he'll pull out the sub or whatever if they go 3 subs, but he'll be mostly using that second AR because most maps and everything in this game are 2 AR, 2 sub. But I think the roster move could be interesting for them because I do think that Kenny obviously is a great player, Slasher's a great player, John's one of the all-time great players, and Draza has been discussing this year, so if they can find a way to piece things together, they could be very good as well. But I think we're just going to hop right into it and start to do some predictions. It's interesting though because like I feel like we got a good grasp on where some teams are and where some of their potentials are. Like we know Faze is dominant still. We know they're still the best team. We know a team like Ultra is still very good. At the same time, Subliners, we know they're still very good, but we're a little bit questioning, have they lost a step? Kind of not being able to play with Asim for the last few weeks as he was having his travel issues. He's now back in the U.S. I believe they said he's in Dallas, and I expect them to pick up right where they left off, but who knows? There could be a lag behind with him not being able to play with the team for a while and stuff. Empire, we see them dominate on LAN, but they've struggled online. Will that carry over? So there's a lot of weird things, being that we had to go from LAN back to online because we see some teams look very good. Some teams kind of falter, like Florida somehow loses to New York with a pickup. And even teams like LA Thieves. Like, we don't have a good grasp on where they are at all. London, we don't really have a good grasp on where they are at all. It's just a lot of weird situations with a lot of teams, but we'll just get into the predictions. First match, they kind of toss us a little easy pitch here. Atlanta versus London. I don't know anybody who's going to be picking London in this. I'm going Atlanta 3-0 because we always say, got to pick some 3-0s, and this seems like one of the ones that's lobbed up for us. London, obviously, with Afro and like being kind of an unknown team and going back to online, has potential to maybe take a search off Faze, or if Faze comes out kind of flat because they've won 2 in a row now. If they get a little complacent, which I don't see happening, I don't see Faze getting complacent, but you always have to talk about the possibility of winning so much they could get a little complacent. Kind of getting to that point in the year where Champs is around the corner. It's about a month away. You can kind of feel it coming. So maybe they're kind of like, oh my God, we have the number 1 seed locked up. Like, how much longer is this year going to go? We just want to get the Champs. You can kind of see them losing focus a little bit. I mean, I don't think they will, but that's the only way that they end up losing maps in this series. Maybe London takes a map or 2 off them, but it'd be pretty insane if London wins a series. I like to make bold predictions, but this is just more than bold. This would be a stupid prediction, but now that I say that, watch London's going to somehow pull off the upset, but we got to go Faze 3-0. Excuse me. Then the next match, we got OpTic Paris. It feels like they're laying 2 softballs up, so OpTic or Faze, one of these 2 is going to lose on the first day because you're giving us Faze versus London, a top team versus a bottom team, and then OpTic versus Paris, another one of the top 4 or 5 teams versus one of the bottom, probably 3 or 4 teams. So it seems like they're giving you another easy one. So in all likelihood, we'll probably get both these wrong somehow. But I'm going to go OpTic. I am going to give Paris a map, though, I think. I feel like Paris are a little bit better than London, in my opinion. And then I think OpTic is obviously a little or maybe a lot worse than Faze. So I feel like the matchup's a little closer because I think London are probably around like that 11th, 12th team for me, kind of somewhere down there, probably ahead of LEG, so probably 11. And I think Paris is more of like the 9th or 10th team in my eyes, depending on how Surge plays online compared to the LAN. Obviously, they look super good on LAN for a little bit there, and they looked horrible online all year, so it's kind of weird to think about. But to me, that's kind of where my logic is. I think OpTic's worse than Faze, Paris a little better than London, so for that reason, I got to give Paris a map. I do think there's a way Paris could make this interesting and find a way to steal 2 maps, and then all of a sudden we have a Game 5, and you never know what can happen in a Game 5. But for the sake of just kind of picking safe to start with the major before we see where every team seems to be, kind of with the practice that they've gotten in between majors in this little break, it seems like you want to pick a little safer in this first week. So that's why I'm going OpTic 3-1. Then moving on to Friday, you've got Minnesota versus LAG. Another one that feels like it should be pretty easy. LAG, obviously a struggling team, but they make a roster switch, so they might have a honeymoon period. You never know how things are going to go with them. I mean, we saw the screenshots of them apparently losing 8-0 map count to their academy team with Chino and Mox and all those guys, so that's obviously alarming if that's true. And Rocker are apparently potentially undergoing a role switch. Obviously, you're going to have Major Maniac staying on the AR, but apparently Priesta might be moving from the second AR to the second sub with Standy, and then Attach might be moving to the second AR with Major Maniac. I'm not sure if that's 100% confirmed or not, but the last I heard, it was like a potential move they were thinking about making, but hadn't officially decided they were going to. And that kind of scares me a little bit, where I think LAG could sneak this one out with a new roster, and just the whole moving parts for both teams makes me a little nervous, and that's why I'm going to go 3-2 to Minnesota. I think LAG are once again going to be that grinded out team that's going to keep the maps close. I think giving a new look with Mental in his debut, a lot of times players in their debut tend to go off because they don't have a lot of film on them, and especially a guy like Mental, because it's not like they even have Challengers film from extended time. Obviously, they have Challengers film from this year if they can go find it and kind of look at it, but like Standy, even when he came in, you had extended film on him. He played in MW. He won. I believe he was on that Nagafen fellow team that won the Challengers Champs, and then he had played a ton this year, so you kind of heard his name. I mean, this is Mental's first year of COD, so you don't have like a ton of knowledge on him, and his game's probably ever evolving because he just switched over to COD for the first time, so like his game's probably evolving at twice the speed that a lot of Challengers players that have been playing for years are, because I mean, their game can only change so much after they've been in the game for years, kind of developing their play style. But I mean, he's in his first year, so his game's probably evolving at a rapid pace. So it's going to be hard to figure him out. LAG is going to have a honeymoon period and want to prove that they shouldn't be dropped, because at this point they're not fighting for playoffs, they're fighting for their COD starting lives. And then Minnesota with the roster change, with the role swaps, could be kind of a little iffy. So for that reason, I feel like this series is destined to go 5. But Minnesota is still the better team, so I want to give them the edge. And then that second match on Friday, Subliners Thieves. This is another interesting one because, like, I mean, Subliners are definitely the better team right now. But like I said, Asim hasn't played for a couple weeks with them. He just got back into Dallas. They've obviously been getting their practice in to get back into form, but who knows, that little hiccup of them not being able to practice together for a little bit may have thrown a little bit of a wrench in them. They may be a little bit off chemistry-wise, or maybe they like kind of lost a step. And LA Thieves obviously is a new roster from what we heard from that Abezy clip or whatever that got leaked or was on stream or whatever. They've been dominating them, but we also kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, don't we? Because it's Faze, so I mean, they kind of dominate everyone, so we can't just be like, oh my god, Faze says they're bad, they must be bad, because I feel like Faze probably stomps a lot of teams in scrims and thinks they're bad. So it's kind of tough. I really, I always have faith in LA Thieves, and I love John as a player, I love Slasher, I love Kenny, you guys all know this. So it's tough for me to pick against LA Thieves, but I think the combination of New York not being able to practice as much with the team over the last 3 weeks, they're going to be maybe a little bit rusty, and I think Thieves are going to come out with some fire. I wanted to go 3-1, but I'm going to give Thieves the benefit of the doubt and say they win 2 maps. There's just no way I can pick against New York right now playing against a new team. I think Thieves could eventually get to the point here towards the end of Stage 5, kind of around playoff time, where they could be a team that could beat New York and beat anybody, but for right now I'm going to go with the overall success this year of New York compared to LA Thieves, who's new, and go 3-2 New York. All right, so moving into the weekend. We've got some nice matches here. Faze Paris, on the other hand, not so much. 3-0 Faze to start it out. I don't know. It's just Faze gets a blessing of a week, especially if they're kind of having a little hangover from winning in the break. They get to play the 2 worst teams in their group for sure, in Paris and London. It's kind of hard to pick any way that Paris is able to beat Faze in some maps. I mean, maybe Paris can find a way to take a search once again like London, but they're going to need some miracle or some Faze just being lazy and playing off because they know they have the 1 seed already. So Faze 3-0. I mean, not much to talk about here. Then we've got Florida versus the Surge. Oh boy, this is a weird one. Once again, this is what I was talking about, the land to online thing. The next 2 matches are going to be the land to online thing. The 2 teams that we probably saw the biggest difference in, Surge and not Florida as much, but Surge and Empire, probably the 2 biggest differences from online to LAN. Everything else was relatively consistent to where it's been. Obviously, New York finishes lower, but that's kind of fluky because Decimate played. It wasn't their normal team. So we're not going to, like, all of a sudden call New York a fluke because of that. But Surge, I mean, they're probably clearly the worst team so far this year. Throughout the year online, they've been horrible, along with LAG. But at LAN, they look pretty good. They pull off a couple wins, play OpTic tight, end up losing. But Surge looked very good compared to their online showing so far this year. So it's kind of interesting to want to pick them, but at the same time, we're back online. So are they going to be the same Surge that gets dominated online? I don't necessarily know that they're going to get dominated like they did in the past, because now they maybe have some confidence based on their LAN performance. But I do think that Florida are a little bit better still. And for that reason, I'm going to go 3-1 to the side of... Actually, no, this is a 3-2 series again. I'm picking way too many 3-2s, but it's a 3-2 series. I think Surge are actually going to be better. I still think they're going to struggle in comparison to what they do on LAN. And I think Florida is going to be just as good as they are on LAN, maybe even better online. And I think Florida has a little bit more to play for because they have the potential, I believe, to jump to like the 7 seed or maybe even the 6 seed if they can get a lot of points and maybe get like a top 3 finish at the Stage 5 major and go 4-1, 5-0 in groups. If they can really have a good stage, I believe they can jump to 6. And 6 is where you want to be at because they released the bracket today for champs, and 7 and 8 actually start in losers. And then play like the losers of the first round matches or whatever in the winner's side. So it's a big deal if you can jump to 6. So Florida's going to be fighting hard. They have a lot more to play for. Surge, I really don't believe there's a way that Surge can mathematically make champs. I mean, if they could make champs, it'd be like something like Florida going 0-5 for sure because of the 8th seed, and then Surge winning every single match, including the major, going undefeated and winning the major. So I don't even know if that would make Surge in it, though. So Surge have a lot to play for. Florida have a lot to play for to try to get themselves out of losers for champs. Florida 3-2. Then we got Empire versus Gorillas. Another weird one. Empire, obviously, like I said, the other team, that's kind of the biggest difference from online to LAN that we saw. Obviously, they weren't terrible. It's not like they were some bad team online. They sucked. They were more of like kind of a top 6 team, middle of the pack team. Like, you knew they could beat anybody, but at the same time, they weren't playing to their potential. And then on LAN, they take Faze to a map 9 in the grand final and could potentially win the thing on LAN. So they look amazing. LAG beat LA Thieves, but I mean, whatever. That's a whole weird situation with the whole Hook thing that happened. I think this is where I got to go with another 3-0. They always happen. So we're picking them 3-0 to the side of Empire. LAG, like I said, they always keep it competitive. You know, I always say it. So there's a way they grind out a map or two and make this close. But with the showing we saw from Dallas Empire and them making it all the way to the final on the final map at the Stage 4 Major, it's hard to pick against them, which is why I'm going with them 3-0. And then finally, going into Sunday, LA Thieves versus London Royal Ravens. I'm going to pick my boys on the Thieves to win this one 3-1. I think it's a situation where LA Thieves come out after losing to New York, and they know if they want to find themselves in winners. I mean, they have, I believe, this is their group where they have OpTic, they have Subliners, and they have Faze. So, I mean, it's gonna be tough to get a spot in winners at the major because, I mean, you're probably gonna basically guarantee that Faze is gonna finish top 3 in their group minimum, if not 1. It's pretty likely that New York's also finishing top 3, and it's decently likely that OpTic can finish in that 3rd spot, maybe that 2nd spot if they're able to take out New York. And Thieves kind of probably believe that they're that 4th team that has a chance. And in their group, they have Paris and London. So if they want any chance at finishing in that 3rd spot ahead of either OpTic, New York, or Faze, they're going to have to find a way to beat London and Paris for sure, as well as obviously upset OpTic or Subliners or both. So for that reason, they are in a must-win situation here against London, and I think they're able to pull it out 3-1. London is just kind of, once again, another team that doesn't have a lot to play for, so it'll be interesting to see how these teams that don't have much to play for end up playing. If they're kind of just playing selfishly because they're trying to stat pad for next year to make sure they keep it on a roster, or what happens, we'll have to see. I could see some weird stuff like that happening, though. Second match of the day, Ultra Rocker. I think I'm going to go with a bold prediction here. Maybe some of you don't think it's bold. Maybe some of you do. We're going another 3-0. 3-0 to the side of Toronto. I do think, like, this isn't because I think Minnesota is, like, awful or anything. I think that Minnesota is actually pretty good. I think they're going to be one of those teams, once again, that's going to stay around that 6 range, that 7 range. And coming into the champs, they're going to be one of those dark horse teams that if they hit their stride at champs, they can make a run because they have veterans in Attach, in Priesta, in Major Maniac that have been to finals at least a few times each in their career. In the case of Attach, many more than a few times. Honestly, even in the case of Priesta at this point, many more than a few times. But at this point, I think Ultra kind of have a lot to prove. They didn't make the final in this last major, which has kind of, as crazy as it sounds coming into the year, we didn't think this would be the case, but kind of the standard for Ultra now is to make the final in the tournaments because they believe that they're a top 2 team. They probably, I mean, at their stage, you probably 100% believe you're the best team in the game, and they for sure believe they're a top 2 team, and they have every right to. I mean, they're right up there with New York as that number 2 team, in my opinion. I mean, it's hard to say they're number 1 because Faze has won 3 out of the 4 majors. They've won the last 2. So Faze is pretty much number 1. But, man, Ultra is right up there. They have a legitimate argument for being the number 2 team. And I think they're going to try to come out and stick it to Minnesota. And the other big thing for them is between New York, Toronto, and Dallas, there's also kind of a battle for the 2 seed, which I believe gets you an extra bye. Because I think 1 and 2 get a bye, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, that's how it is. 1 and 2 get a bye into the second round of winners, and 3, 4, 5, and 6 all play in the first round. I believe 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 at champs, and then the loser of 3-6 goes down and plays. I believe the 8 seed, maybe? And then the loser of 4-5 plays the 7 seed, whichever way it goes. It might go the other way around, but they go down to play the 7 and 8 seed. So it's a big deal for Toronto to try to maintain. I believe they're the team in the lead. Actually, with Dallas finishing that high, Dallas might be. But whatever. They're trying to find a way, Toronto is, to extend their lead or catch up to that 2 seed, because obviously they want that extra bye. So they're going to come out motivated. They're going to stomp Minnesota in this one, I think. I think they're going to provide us with a statement on why they should be viewed as the second best team in the game. And then going into our marquee match. By the way, I don't know why LAG versus Dallas is the marquee match. I mean, granted, all 3 of those matches on Saturday are kind of trash. I mean, Florida Surge, I would put it as the marquee because I'm more interested in it, but I get why they put Dallas there. They're one of the bigger name teams, defending champs, finished second at the last land, so like I get Dallas is a big team, but I don't know, LAG shouldn't be in a marquee matchup. But the marquee matchup on Sunday is actually really good. OpTic versus New York. To me, this is a really good matchup too, because we're expecting Faze to be the number 1 team in their group, but OpTic and New York are probably the teams we're expected to be second and third. I mean, if I were to pick the group, I'd probably pick New York second and OpTic third. So it's a good matchup. It's like I usually would always be picking New York right away in this. Based on this year, New York's been flat out the better team. There's no doubt about it. But it's weird with the whole Asim situation where he hasn't been there. Like I said when I was talking about that Thieves match, he hasn't been there, so who knows if there's a little bit of rust. But at the same time, OpTic was supposed to kind of hit their stride come champs time, and it doesn't seem like they've hit it. The reason I think that OpTic could be hitting their form, though, is because, I don't know, how do I say this? OpTic, I think, could be hitting their form better because Scump looked great at the major. He was frying a lot of the respawns, and to me, if Scump fries and the other guys play how we know they can, that's how OpTic can win a tournament. Because we know Envoy and Dashy can absolutely fry if they're on points, and we know Formal can fry, although he's had some off matches. So to me, it almost comes down to Scump and Formal, because Envoy and Dashy have pretty consistently, I think we've been a little bit lackluster from Envoy compared to MW, but I think they've been pretty consistently putting up good numbers. It's just Scump has been a little inconsistent this year, and if Scump plays like he did, like he looked like a top sub at times in the 4th major. And if he looks like that, and Envoy and Dashy are able to play how we know they can, and Formal can even step up to half the level we know he can be, that's how OpTic wins a tournament. And the fact that Scump showed those flashes in the major is kind of scary for me, but at the same time, they're back online. We know how much OpTic has complained about online, so I can see a way that they kind of let this get to their mental and be like, hey, we just got to find a way to get to the major, or the major and champs, then we're back on land. We're back on land for good. We get fans. So I can see them kind of losing their motivation because they're just thinking ahead to land. And I don't think the rest of New York is going to be too terrible. So for that reason, I'm going New York. But I really think OpTic could win this. So that's why I'm going to put a 3-2, just because I think it's going to be a close series. So whenever I think it's going to be a really close series, I tend to put it 3-2. But I'm going to go New York just because they've been the better team this year, and I'm going to rely on the fact that the rust isn't going to be too much from Asim missing. But there you have it. There's my predictions. I feel relatively good because there's a lot of matches, like both phase matches, they're playing weak teams. But there's a lot of decent matches this week. I'm going to be pretty busy. Saturday, I'm having like a college grad party. I'm going to be attempting to try to attend the Bucks game, the finals. You guys obviously know if you follow me on Twitter or anything, I'm a huge Milwaukee Bucks fan. I have been for my whole life. So this is obviously a big moment for me because not only are the Bucks in the finals, but I've been a huge Bucks fan my entire life, which, I mean, I'm talking I started right before they drafted Andrew Bogut, and they were like going maybe 20 wins every year, 20 and 62, like on a good year. If the Bucks won 30 games, went 30 and 52, it was a good year. I've been a fan since then. So whether you want to call it a fluke that they're in the finals or whatever, injuries, whatever, I mean, they're in the damn NBA finals, and I've been a Bucks fan and suffered through all the years of horrible teams. So it's just, I mean, it's a cool moment for me. It's obviously very expensive, but I'm going to try to go to the finals game 3 if I can, because it might be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. They might never be back in the finals of my life, and they're probably my favorite sports team out there, so it's really cool for me. So I hope you guys understand if I miss a little bit of the matches. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Ryan with the CDL podcast channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, and sorry for the hiatus.